The air in our world often feels heavy. It is heavy with the literal smoke of a changing climate, wildfires that no longer feel exceptional but expected. And it is heavy with the metaphorical smoke of systemic injustice, of lives marginalized, of rights rolled back, of communities asked again and again to justify their humanity. It is heavy with exhaustion, the exhaustion that comes from trying to stay awake, engaged, and compassionate in a world that feels increasingly fractured. And sometimes that heaviness becomes heartbreakingly specific. In recent days and weeks, many of us have been carrying the news from Minneapolis, the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, killed by federal immigration enforcement agents. 2 lives ended, 2 families shattered, a community left grieving and demanding accountability. Moments like these don't just break our hearts, they make the air itself feel unsafe. Because when state violence reaches into neighborhoods and bodies, the message is clear. Some people are expected to live with a constant tightening of the throat. Many of us arrive here today already tired of the headlines, tired of the urgency, tired of feeling like we are supposed to be outraged at full volume at all times, yet somehow still hopeful, still functional, and still kind. When we gather in this space, we bring that heaviness with us. We don't leave it at the door because Unitarian Universalism is not a faith of escapism. It is a faith of engagement. We believe the world is changed not by looking away from suffering, by facing it honestly and together. But engagement requires fuel. It requires stamina. It requires rhythm. And that is what many people are missing right now. Not commitment, not compassion, but breath. Today, we turn to the words of the poet Lynn Ungar, whose words are in the yellow insert in your order of service for today, whose dialogue between a weary soul and the wind captures the tension of our moment, the pole between urgency and endurance, between righteous anger and spiritual survival. Ungar begins with a command that can feel almost insulting. Breathe, said the wind. The response is one many of us recognize in our own bodies and words we may have even found ourselves saying out loud. How can I breathe at a time like this, when the air is full of the smoke of burning tires, burning lives? There is a deep theological honesty in that protest. To breathe deeply when the world is on fire can feel like betrayal. It can feel like indifference. We live in a culture that often confuses panic with commitment and exhaustion with faithfulness. We subtly learned that if we are not overwhelmed, we must not be paying attention. But the wind, which in many religious traditions is synonymous with spirit, ruach, or pneuma, insists. Not because the wind is indifferent to the smoke, but because the wind knows what the smoke is trying to do. Injustice thrives on constriction. It shortens the breath. It narrows the imagination. It pushes people and communities into constant fight or flight, where survival consumes all available energy, where there is no room left for creativity, for organizing, for healing, or for hope. When we cannot breathe, we cannot think clearly. When we cannot breathe, we lose nuance. When we cannot breathe, we become reactive rather than creative. In that sense, breathing is not retreat. Breathing is resistance. To claim your breath in a world that seeks to stifle it is to assert your right to exist. It is to declare that your body, your spirit, and your presence matter. That is why deaths like those of Renee Good and Alex Preddy strike so deeply. Because they are not just tragedies, they are reminders of how often breath itself is treated as expendable. And yet, the wind still says, breathe. Perhaps the most important turn in Unger's poem is the distinction between breathing and being calm. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry, so much cause for despair. I didn't say to be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. This distinction matters, especially in justice-centered communities. Calls for peace or civility have too often been used to silence righteous anger. But anger, when rooted in love, is not spiritual failure. It is evidence that our moral compass is still working. The prophets were not calm. Jesus flipped over tables and made whips to chase people out of the temple. Movements that bend history toward justice are rarely calm. Social justice is not a calm business. It is fueled by holy anger, the refusal to accept a world that crushes some lives for the comfort of others. Resilience, then, is not the absence of distress. It is the ability to move through distress without being consumed by it. If we try to hold our breath until the world is fixed, we will pass out long before justice arrives. If we wait for perfect calm before acting, we will never begin. The wind tells us something liberating. You can be furious and breathing at the same time. You can be grieving and breathing at the same time. You can be overwhelmed and still inhale. Breath does not extinguish the fire of our convictions. It gives it oxygen without letting it burn us alive. At this time of year, this wisdom meets the ancient rhythm of Imbolc. Imbolc marks a turning, not because winter is over, but because something is stirring beneath the frozen ground. The days are still cold. The nights are still long, and yet light is returning. Imbolc reminds us that resilience begins small, as a flicker, as a candle, a breath, a quietly stoked flame that is providing energy. Breathing like Imbolc is an act of trust. Trust that what is small is not insignificant. Trust that what is slow is not stagnant. Trust that life is still moving even when the world feels frozen. The poem ends with a striking image and statement. We're going to need a lot of air to make this hurricane together. Hurricanes are immense gatherings of energy, formed by countless small movements converging into something powerful enough to reshape landscapes. Unger suggests that our individual breaths, those quiet, stubborn inhalations we take in the midst of despair, are the raw materials of collective transformation. This is the heart of pastoral social justice. We care for our spirits not so we can retreat into comfort, but so we can build the collective power necessary to change the systems that cause harm. When we breathe together, we are doing more than staying alive. We are synchronizing our efforts. We are clearing the smoke of cynicism. We are sustaining the long haul because justice is generational work. Resilience is spiritual infrastructure. So how do we practice this? First, acknowledge the smoke. We do not pretend injustice isn't real. We name it. We remember names. Resilience begins with truth. Second, release the guilt around rest. If you need to step back, to sleep, to unplug, this is not failure. It is refueling. Movements collapse when people are treated as expendable. Third, find your collective. A single breath is a whisper. 1,000 breaths is a gale. We breathe together in community. When one forgets how, the others carry the rhythm. This is why congregations matter. Not because we have all the answers, but because we practice staying human together. As you leave this space today, remember the weight of injustice is real, but it does not have the final word. The air is still yours. The spirit is still moving. The light is returning. Do not fear your anger, let it inform you. Do not fear your exhaustion, let it humble you. But do not stop breathing. There is a hurricane of justice waiting to be built. It needs your hands, your voice, your heart. But first, most fundamentally, it needs your breath. So take a moment to take a deep breath in and let it out. Let us go out into the world trusting that even now, especially now, life is stirring, justice is calling, and the wind is still on our side. May we cause it to be so. Blessed be. Amen. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Thank you all so much.